Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. I know it's not Halloween. Alright, that's long past. But when it came to my Halloween videos, I ran out of time and I couldn't upload everything I wanted to. So that's why I'm uploading them past Halloween. But if you stop and look at it like this, at some point in time, it's gonna be Halloween time again, October. So somebody eventually will stumble upon my videos and watch it around Halloween time. So yeah, and I'm here today to talk to you about my thoughts on the first 3 Conjuring movies and the 2 Nun movies. So I've recently just finished watching all of the Conjuring universe movies, except for those 2 spin-offs that some people don't try to connect to the Conjuring universe and were like box office bombs. So when it comes to the Conjuring universe, I'm talking about like the Annabelle movies, the Conjuring movies, and the Nun movies. So those 2 spin-offs I've just never seen. And you know, when it comes to this whole like Conjuring universe and stuff, whether you like it or not, you gotta give it up some respect. This was like a decade ago, and they created their own cinematic universe. The only real successful cinematic universe is still, to this day, the MCU, with the DCEU coming in second. Other people have tried, and they have failed. They have tried to make, well, Universal tried to make like Monster Universe, and that crashed and burned with that Mummy movie that Tom Cruise did. So the fact that Peter Safran and James Wan was able to make a cinematic universe out of like a horror series, you know, with a bunch of spin-offs and stuff, is pretty impressive. And like, you know, I still can't believe these came out like a decade ago. And you know, I didn't watch those back then. I just recently watched these like last year. And I was gonna make this video a whole lot earlier, but I got sick on Christmas Eve. And I'm just now getting better and stuff. And you know, a decade ago, this all you heard about was The Conjuring this, and you saw pictures of Annabelle that, and just like all kind of like other stuff. Since a decade now, there's still, for the most part, these movies are winding down, with The Nun 2 coming out just last year in 2023. And the reason for that is that people are kind of over the Conjuring universe for the most part, from what I can tell online. Not all their movies do particularly very well. There's actually only a few. I believe there are 9 movies in the entry. Let's see. No, I think there's 8 in the entry, and then those 2 spinoffs. And, you know, only a few of them have done very well. The timeline, you know, is established, and you can pretty much follow it very well. But for the most part, it's just like, I don't know, people are getting kind of tired of the Conjuring universe. And the next movie that's supposed to come out is The Conjuring 4, The Last Rites. The fact that they call it The Last Rites might just be the very last one. And you know what? They do need to, you know, end this universe, because it's getting to the point of predictability and a bit of staleness. Like, I think these movies are pretty good. I think they're pretty solid. But it is not my favorite, like, you know, horror movie franchise. My favorite horror movie franchise will always be the original, not the original, but the Evil Dead, but only the ones with Bruce Campbell in it. I don't like those other 2 movies, but if it's just like, you know, the Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell, then I'm all for it. And, you know, but like I said before, you know, Peter Safran and James Wan, my God, man. All these movies combined, they have made a total of over 200 billion with the B dollars and stuff for their entire franchise. And that's pretty impressive. So, you know, you gotta give them the respect that they deserve, because the thing about these movies that is so unique is that they're different. they have like a completely different vibe to them than most horror movies. And that's because they slap the word like, true story or true events, but these are based on true people and stuff. And, once you put that word of true this and true that, it really starts to intrigue people. It kind of almost in a way brainwashes your brain into really wanting to focus on what this story could be about and how true it can actually be. That's how a TV series back in the 90s that I covered on my channel called Fact or Fiction Beyond Belief was. Some of those stories were true and others were fiction. And then when you stopped and you thought to yourself, oh my God, that's true. But then you're like, wait, hold up. I don't believe in none of that stuff. So, like, what the heck? See, it tricks your brain and everything. And, when it comes to fact or fiction, it was a fictional writer that went around the United States asking people stories about their lives. And they say, oh, yeah, this paranormal thing happened to me and that paranormal thing happened to me. And so he wrote like stories around that. And you got to pick which ones were true and which ones were fake and everything. And, but when you actually try to do the research on it, you can't find no explanation of how true that can actually be. And so when it comes to the whole Conjuring universe, for the most part, with the exception of the Annabelle movies, probably like the Conjuring and the Nun, these movies are based on real life people and stuff. So that makes people very, very, very intrigued to want to watch the movies. Another thing that's like really cool about these movies is like, it keeps it fresh in terms of jump scares. Like, it's pretty hard in nowadays to be creative when it comes to a jump scare in a horror movie because it's been done to death, and especially in slasher movies. But the thing that's so fresh about this is that every time they have a jump scare in one of these movies, like, it feels very creative. It's timed perfectly. You're anticipating it, but then it's like it doesn't happen the way you want it to. And he's like, well, what the heck is going on? And then it happens, and then you don't expect for it to happen the way it does. And they really take a new nuance to how they do their jump scares and stuff, especially like with the Conjuring 2 and the Nun and that little picture frame and stuff. Or the Nun 2 and all those pictures. It's similar to what the It movie did, the remake and everything. It made its jump scares very new and fresh. Same thing with that of the Smile movie. Like that jump scare near the car windshield is still the best jump scare I've ever seen in a horror movie. And I love the jump scares in the Conjuring universe. But when it comes to the Conjuring universe, there is that staleness I was talking about, and that staleness is the pacing of it all. The movies are anywhere between 90 to 80 minutes long, and for a full hour, nothing is really going on. We're introduced to all these characters. So we're introduced to like all these families or like a couple and this and that. And so for a full hour, you get to know them and you start to like them because the movies are beautifully cast. They're very likable actors and everything, the characters. And so you really, feel for these characters, especially when you know something bad's about to happen to them. And in that hour, there's like teeny tiny sprinkles of like horror stuff going on, but very subtle horror stuff that keeps you invested. Then of course the last 20, 30 or 40 minutes, that's when all the heebie-jeebie stuff starts to happen. And it's really good, but it is predictable. And so, you're going into a movie where you're going to sit there for an hour with all this talking and all these people, and then all the creepy stuff's going to happen at the end. And the thing is, like I said before, you do not need a full hour to get to know your characters in a movie because it's going to make you so bored and everything. And that's what happens. It makes you very, very bored. And, they need to start throwing things in between. Kind of like the first Final Destination movie. Like, there was stuff going on, but then there was also horror stuff being in between a lot of the dialogue type stuff. So like first you had like a bunch of dialogue, getting to know the characters, and then something creepy would happen and somebody would die. And then like, people start talking again, then something creepy would happen and somebody will die. And that kept you very interested. But another problem with the whole Conjuring universe is that nobody really ever dies in these movies. In the total of all these movies, I think I've only seen two people die in like the Conjuring movies and stuff. And I don't think nobody's ever died in the Nun movies. And so when you have a horror movie franchise, you gotta kill people. Like, that's just the thing. Like, when you don't kill nobody, it makes for a very boring movie. Also, these movies are predictable because when it comes to all of the Conjuring movies, it's like, okay, you have a family or whatever, lots of dialogue, the Warrens show up, they're trying to stop whatever it is, and then it always ends in some type of exorcism. And when it ends in the exorcism, it's just like, that's how all the movies are. And so you know exactly what's going to happen. There was an exorcism in the first movie. There was a brief tiny one in the second, and then there was another one in the third. And I will admit, I do like how they do their exorcisms, because exorcism movies have been around since the 70s. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to bring something else up that comes up in the 70s. And so, like, because, like, how many times you see somebody levitating off a bed or this and that? Like, the one thing I liked about the first exorcism in the Conjuring movie is that the lady was sitting in a chair, and the chair just rose up. It gave that extra level of tension and something that you needed, other than her just being laying flat on the bed and like rising, And it was just so cool to see her rise up in like that chair. And so, like, so these movies are becoming very predictable and very stale. And it's just kind of at the point where it's just like, you're getting kind of tired of it. Another thing I find like a problem with these movies is like, there's always like two demonic like antagonists in the movies. So it's like, well, which one is the real one? And it's so confusing because throughout the entire movie, you'll go through one antagonist, but then all of a sudden another one will pop up. And it's like, well, where the heck did you come from? And why were you shoved in this movie? It makes absolutely no sense. Like, I'll give you a couple of examples. The first Conjuring movie starts with Annabelle. So like, okay, it's going to be like an Annabelle movie. Cool, I like Annabelle. But then all of a sudden, Annabelle just disappears, and now you're at this family's house, and I think in Connecticut, and there's like a witch, and the house is possessed, and it's just kind of like, well, what the heck happened to Annabelle? So it's like, oh, okay, this witch ghost lady, whatever, is the main antagonist. So she's the main antagonist for the entire movie. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of the movie, they go from that house in Connecticut back to the Warrens' house where the daughter is at, and like, and the grandmother is at, and then all of a sudden it's back with Annabelle and stuff, and Annabelle's like scaring the piss out of them and all this other crap, and it's just like, wait, so she's also actually in this movie? And then it stops with that, and then you don't see Annabelle no more, and then it goes back to that house with the witch lady and stuff, and it's just like, well, who the heck is the actual main antagonist? And it's like, oh, now this person's getting exercise, so that's the main like antagonist. The second movie, they tried to be very, very creative and throw people off. You think it's the old man, but he's just a pawn. And so the real antagonist is Valak and everything, the evil demonic nun lady. But then all of a sudden, the crooked man shows up. And it's like, dude, where the heck did you come from? And then he disappears, and it's back to being about Valak. Now, they were supposed to make a spinoff of the crooked man, but they had to cancel that because people are getting really tired of this universe and everything. Then you have the third movie where this man is supposedly possessed by like the devil or whatever, and he has to be exorcised because he killed somebody. But then halfway in the movie, there's this new character now, some woman, who was made out of wedlock from this pastor dude, and she's a second antagonist and everything, and she's actually made up in the entire series. And so it's just kind of like, okay. And so that starts to become a very weird pattern when they start throwing in like a secondary antagonist. And so I don't like that and stuff. Now, as for both the Nun movies, I don't like them. I don't like none of the Nun movies. I think they're very boring and everything. And they seem very pointless and everything. And I assume when they made the Nun movies, they were going to show how the Nun lady became possessed by Valak or whatever, but they never show that. So what the heck is the point of these movies? Basically, it's just a demon who takes the form of, like, you know, a nun for whatever reason. And on top of that, you had the first movie where you think, okay, the nun lady, Sister Irene, killed the demonic thing with the whole blood of Christ and that little cross and everything. But then you find out in the second movie, nope, she's the nun lady, the evil nun lady is still around, and she's in Maurice and everything. And so with some kind of MacGuffin that shines light, you think that Valak is destroyed, right? Well, no, because if you watch The Conjuring 2, then you know for a fact that even though the Nun 2 ended on like a nice note where Maurice is, like, you know, alive and he's gonna start dating that teacher and probably taking that little girl, you know, in The Conjuring 2, Valak is still around and they have to defeat Valak. So no matter what, Sister Irene failed twice. So it makes the Nun movies very pointless. Not only that, but you know the fate of Maurice. Maurice was shown in video footage as like a much older man who was possessed once again by Valak. And Maurice is actually based on a real man, like the real man. See, basically what happened back in the old days is that he claims that a demon was inside him, caused him to want to try to kill his wife. He was unable to kill her, and then he took his own life. And remember in the movie, you know, Lorraine says she touched him, and oh no, she saw a vision that scared the crap out of her for like 9 days and everything. And so we know no matter what, Maurice is gonna have a unhappy ending and everything. Like, it's tragic and stuff, and he's still possessed no matter what. So the Nun movies are very pointless because our heroes do not win and the evil person wins and stuff. So it makes for a very stupid, very boring, very pointless movies. As for the first Conjuring movie, you know, I thought it was like pretty solid and everything. You know, got to know the family, the house is haunted, not sure why. We see the Warrens and everything, and then they go over to examine the GB heebie-deebies and everything, and then, you know, they do the exorcism. So it was a pretty solid movie. The second Conjuring movie I thought was a little bit more interesting. It's in a different country now. There's a little girl being possessed by some kind of old man, and we don't know why. Twist, 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 it turns out to be, like, you know, Valak. And then another twist, oh, there's a crooked man there who's inside the little toy thing or whatever. And what's interesting about the second one, that there are more realistic people from the real world who was actually presented in that movie. And, you know, there wasn't so much of an exorcism, but you felt worried for, like, you know, the husband, whatever his name is, because, you know, the wife kept seeing, like, you know, the vision of him dying, and you know, and it was like really hard. Plus, you know, the British family was really cool. I really liked how they was like this poor little family in this rundown apartment, and then all of a sudden here comes this demonic thing going after them for whatever reason. And the Warrens are trying to be as nice as they can to the family. The dad's trying to, like, or the husband's trying to, like, help out, like, with the plumbing and stuff like that. It was like really cool, really interesting, and it kept you engaged. But it wasn't much of an exorcism, and it's so stupid for Valak to literally tell Lorraine what her name was early in the movie. So then in the end, she's like, I know your name, and I'm banning you back to your demonic place. And it's just like, really, like, just like that. But the jump scares was really cool, and, like, you know, stuff like that. The third one, I felt they went too far, like, once again, based on a true story. And the whole devil made me do it thing, just like this man in real life said, like, you know, the devil made him do it, and this is why he did, that's why he killed his landlord and all this other crap, and he went to trial, went to jail, got out for good behavior. And then it's just kind of like, dude, this story went a little too far. Like, I would have appreciated more if, like, They just would have made everybody up in that movie, because you got to think about the real life family of the person that he murdered. They now have to see this being profited into making a movie and everything, you know. Also, the pacing was weird. It's like, you know, you would expect the Warrens to deal more with, like, you know, the dude who said he was possessed by the devil and this is why he killed and like all this other stuff, but they're too busy trying to track down something else, and then they create this completely other different demonic thing, and that movie just should have never been made, in my opinion. And you know, and once again, there's an exorcism, like the first one's by like the Warren, all them, and then jumps from that boy into him, and then like, you know, the priest dudes at the other place trying to exorcise the thing, and it just should never been made. And so, like, yeah, it's just like these are some really interesting movies, and I think they're pretty solid. And James Wan and Peter Safran, you know, they made a fortune based on the events of real life people. Notice I said the events and not the real events. Why? Because this is all fake. This is all a fraud. This is all a hoax. None of that stuff happened to none of those people. Look, I don't believe in the heebie-jeebies. I don't believe in the boogeyman. That is what it is. It's a hoax. It's a fraud. It's a lie. All these people lie. Look, I don't believe in this stuff. I don't believe in holy stuff. I don't believe in demonic stuff. I don't believe in alien stuff. If you choose to hate, that is you. That is fine. You do you and I do me. I'm a man of science. I love myself some Demi Lovato, but Demi Lovato believes in aliens and demons and like ghosts and crap like that. And it's just like, whatever, I'm still a fan of hers and stuff. But you know, I've had friends that believe in all kinds of stuff. I've had friends that are more scientific. I've had friends that are more religious. And I've even had a friend that was a devil worshiper. And you know what? I treat them all the same because they were my friends, because they are humans. But I don't believe in none of this stuff. Basically, these people made up all these stories for whatever reason back in like the 70s and everything. And as for like the Warrens and stuff, you know, like before I get into them, it's because kind of like, you know, every movie with the Conjuring, look, man, old houses make noises when they have damage over the years. I don't believe it was possessed. As for like the second Conjuring movie, look, man, there have been reports that people have found evidence that that girl and her teenage sister were lying the entire time. They say that she was trying to learn ventriloquism. They say she's basically just jumping up in the bed. It looks like she's levitating. And when you see the real life pictures of her levitating in the air, and yes, they are online, she is literally jumping in the bed. And because if you're levitating, why in the world aren't you standing up straight, or why aren't you laying flat on your back? She's at an arch and she jumped one part in the bed and then one part to the side. All right, like, I just don't believe it. And as for the dude who said the devil made him do it and everything, well, he just wanted to murder somebody. And what better person to blame than the devil himself? And why would some of these people lie about this stuff? Well, let's face it. The Exorcism movie came out a few years. Like, the whole Conjuring 2 events happened in 1977 in real life. The Exorcism happened in 1973. People got inspired. And, you know, if you can lie, and there's always going to be somebody who's going to believe a lie. That's why politicians are doing what they're doing, because people are going to believe their lies. Then you get interviewed, and there's a lot of fame and publicity to come with that. And most of the time, when you do an interview on television, they have to pay you and stuff. And then, of course, people are gonna be like, you know, give them lots of like attention, and people might write books about them. And if you write a book about somebody and they have their name in it, then supposedly you have to pay that person. This is why when people write stories and TV shows and movies based on their real lives, they change the names of the people that these characters are based off of, because they would have to pay these people money and everything. And so, no, I do not believe none of this crap ever happened and stuff. The actors who play like the Warrens and everything, they do a very good job. I love Vimir well, Vera Farmiga and everything. She's such a great actress. This is why I said I was shocked by her performance in Hawkeye because she's not giving nothing. But when you give her something to give, she can give it. And, they do an amazing job. They make the Warrens seem like such friendly, warm, caring, loving people, when in reality, they were not like that. Look, they are demonologists. I'm gonna call it like it is. They were frauds and everything. They went around the world saying this demonic thing happened and that demonic thing happened, but none of this crap ever happened. And they had like literally a basement full of like treasures that they of the stuff like demonic stuff being possessed in there. And I don't believe none of that stuff happened. And I'm not the only person who thinks they're frauds and everything. Even the movies pointed that out, talking about, some people call us frauds and blah, blah, and stuff like that. I mean, they made a fortune lying to people. And you know what? If people was willing to give them money for lying, why not? And everything. And they're depicted as like really sweet, nice, kind people in a loving marriage. But in reality, I read that the dude cheated on his wife. Like they had a girlfriend who lived with them and all kind of stuff. And so, of course, in the movies they ain't gonna portray that because they have to be portrayed as protagonists. Like take the whole Annabelle thing. Okay, anybody who's ever had a toy knows that the weather will change a toy's position. The wind, especially the heat. You touch like something that the toy is on and all of a sudden it moves position. So for that nurse who said, oh, I think this doll is like possessed, nah man, whatever. And when it comes to the doll, like I think what's her name, Rachel Warren, the daughter, I believe I read somewhere that she stated that like she's never met the doll until she became an adult. And throughout the entire Conjuring universe, she has seen and interacted with that doll ever since she was a little kid. And so, like, the movies like change that around to make it more dramatic and crap. And, it's just like, it's interesting. Like, these movies are all based on like a scam, like a fraud and everything. And it's so funny that the two dudes made like these movies, billions of dollars on stories that are completely and utterly fake. And a lot of them have been proven to be false and everything. And it's just so funny because, like I said, the whole appeal of the whole true events or true people, whatever, because the style of the movies is interesting. They start off similar to how the realistic thing in real life happened. And then they talk about like, the Warrens or demonologists, and these are based on like true events or whatever. So that kind of like tricks your brain. Then what's really cool is at the end of the movie, we get to hear real sound bites from all of these possessions, these demonic possessions from back in the day, based on like, news coverage and stuff like that. And then they show pictures of like the real life people. So that really tricks your brain, like, ooh, this is like interesting. This is something like I've never seen before. And it's because it isn't. You don't see movies formatted like this. And so, like I said before, it's not the best franchise in the world, but it's pretty solid and it's pretty interesting and it keeps you very entertained and everything. But that entertainment is starting to run very, very thin and very, very stale and everything, because when the first Annabelle movie came out, at that time it was the worst movie that came out box office wise, and they had to recuperate. I still think Annabelle Creates is the best one in the entire franchise. There's just something to that movie that is so cool, like, you know what I'm saying? That wasn't that spooky. All right, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.